talk us through some of the critical metrics that you commonly look at through day-to-day to prepare a squad for an upcoming game and across a season?
Something that we've started looking at a little bit more is how our training load is comparing to our match load. And we've tried to simplify this concept into something we're calling game relative data. What I mean by that is pretty much using a player's match average as a bit of a baseline, and then taking a training session, a week, a month, a year, whatever it might be, and dividing it by that game average. So you can do this for whatever your metric is, and you treat each metric individually. But for the sake of explaining it, let's use total distance. Let's say a player averages 12 kilometres for a match. If they go and run a training session, they run 6 kilometres in that training session, we might give that total distance game relative value 0.5, half a game load. And you could apply that across all of your metrics.
Can you share some of the latest technology in sports science for those that aren't aware of some of the tools you have access to?
If we've got a whole heap of information we're trying to crunch and process big data and synthesize that into bite-sized pieces, then we'll try and use some bigger tools. So true database tools, generally the coding language we run there is SQL. There's a bunch of platforms that can be used running SQL, from free programs like Microsoft SQL Server, which is what we used in AFLW for a number of years. For us, implementing an athlete management system effectively is a really big part of what we do. So Smarterbase is our athlete management system of choice. There's probably some other tools that we use, again, not specific to sport. Tools such as R and Shiny, they're probably some big ones for us to try and build applications or visualizations that are a little bit more bespoke and require a little bit more technical know-how, or we're going after something really specific that we want to show.
What's a particular red flag? Let's use the example of the groin squeeze, looking at the rolling average and across a year of the groins and compared to perhaps their max. What's a big concern? Is it more than 10% drop off?
Yeah, we've got 3 layers of flagging that we use. We look at the rolling average and the acute change, and we use 15% as our drop from that. So off a rolling 28-day average, if it's more than 15% below, we'll pick that up as a flag. If it's an acute drop of more than 15%, we'll also look at that as a flag. And then also a new one that we've brought in is 2 successive drops of more than 5%. A red flag does not mean you're not training. A red flag is simply a prompt for a conversation, generally between myself and a physio, or myself and the high performance manager. So my philosophy when building a lot of these reports and building these flagging mechanisms is let's try and get it to pick up as much as I think is relevant, rather than picking up where we think it's genuinely an injury risk. Because if we're only just picking up injury risks, we're probably not flagging quite enough, because it would have to be quite an extreme flag to genuinely say this player's score is so poor that we think they're going to get hurt heading into this training session.
So the vault equipment, what other pieces of equipment would you be exposed to practitioners need to be aware of if they want to be a sports scientist or even an S&C at elite sport these days?
I can only really speak to what we use at Carlton. Vold's a big one, using their Nord board, their Force frame, their Force decks, and their Dynamo, probably to a lesser extent, probably a bit more physio-specific, that one. They're pretty basic bits of equipment that all students who come through at Carlton will get an exposure to, so they're probably the foundational ones. GPS technology is obviously a big one, being able to operate really effectively using Catapult's software. That's a really important skill set. Again, something that students coming in the door, I spend a fair bit of time teaching them. Being able to use that under a little bit of pressure out in the field. Often you'll get a lot of questions thrown your way, and we try and structure our training environment so that we can handle as many questions coming our way as we possibly can throughout the course of a training session.
Do you see it as more of an opportunity to make a bigger impact and create more efficient systems, or is the AI a threat to practitioners?
I don't see it as a threat in any way, shape or form. I'm reasonably strong on that one. I think that it will be hugely impactful in sport simply because of the pace that we operate in elite sport. AI doesn't change what information you have. It just changes how you use it and how you can bring it to life. In our football world, at quarter time, we have, I think it's 7 minutes. You cannot consume the amount of information that an AI could consume in the first 2 minutes before you then have to go and make meaning from that information. I see AI being a hugely useful tool purely because of the speed that it can consume information and make meaning from it. The information will still need to be collected. It will still need to come through a person to be delivered. So I just see it as a really useful tool in our space.